Go. We're live.
Okay, good evening, everyone. This is the regular meeting of the Ross Town Council on Thursday, September 10, 2020, and I'm calling the meeting to order. Linda, could you please take roll?
Good evening, council members. Councilmember Breckus.
Here.
And Councilmember Kircher.
Here.
Councilmember Cool.
Here.
Councilmember Robbins.
Here.
And Mayor McMillan.
Here. Has the agenda been posted?
Yes.
Now we are going to approve the minutes from the August 6th special meeting and the August 13th regular meeting. And Linda received a couple of really minor changes. Linda, if you could.
Yes, let's do the first meeting, August 6th. We had one edit to the sentence, she urged the council. It said 4 vote, and we changed it to 2 vote for incumbents. So if you want to take a motion on that one.
Sure. Can we have a motion to approve the August 6th special council meeting minutes?
Move to approve.
Second.
I'm sorry, who's second?
Beach.
Okay, and let's take the vote on that. Councilmember Breckus
Aye.
and Councilmember Kircher,
Aye.
Councilmember Cool,
Aye.
Councilmember Robbins,
Aye.
and Mayor McMillan.
Aye.
And so the motion passes with 1 edit. And the August 13th minutes, we had 2 minor edits on page 3. At the bottom of the page, the first sentence, Michael McDowell, superintendent, spoke about the strong advocacy. It said advocation, so we changed it to advocacy. And then the second one was on page 5. We added the sentence, Mayor McMillan closed the public comment period.
Thank you. Could we have a motion?
Move to. Second.
Okay, and let's take the vote. Councilmember Breckus
Aye.
and Councilmember Kircher,
Aye.
Councilmember Cool,
Aye.
Councilmember Robbins,
Aye.
and Mayor McMillan.
Aye.
The motion passes as amended.
Thank you, Linda. Have the demands been met?
Yes, they have.
Thank you. Next is Town Council recognition of Advisory Design Review Group member Dan Winey for his 12 years of service on ADR.
I'm wondering if we could bring Dan up on screen if possible. Well, oh.
I see his name.
I see
You got,
your name.
well, there you
Hi.
go. How about that? Camera should be.
Hi, Dan. Well, I want to recognize and really the spectacular service that Dan Winey has provided to the town of Ross for his 12 years of service on the Advisory Design Review. You look at what is so special and charming and the aesthetics of Ross, and Dan and the rest of ADR have a huge part of who Ross is. And it's not always easy. You go to the meetings and they're telling people ways they could improve their projects and how they could fit better in with the neighborhood, ways to improve the design. And Dan has been just phenomenal, and really the town owes you a debt of gratitude because you look a world-class talent. Dan, he's the chief operating officer at Gensler Architect and was chairman. You just bring your talents from around the world to Little Ross and help make this the special town it is. It is unique, and it took me a while to figure out all the pieces of what makes Ross Ross, but your design review and the comments and how we build helps in making Ross Ross. So we owe you for obviously 12 years of service. And plus, I would say, Dan, every time like Heidi and I had something around town hall or properties, we'd call and Dan would meet us to help. What should we do to make something look better or better design? And so thank you very much. Gonna miss you greatly. And so I wanted to say thank you. And I don't know if others have.
Yeah, Joe, thank you. You know, I'm going to have you over for dinner now after that. I'm going to have you over for dinner to celebrate with this little gift that you guys sent me, this Ross Private Reserve I got this afternoon. So, no, it's been just a couple quick words. It's been really enjoyable. I've really actually loved doing it. It isn't always easy. You know, as Joe said, me and all the other ADR members, we're trying to always balance the needs of an individual or the needs of family with those of the needs of the community from, you know, planning and design standpoint. It's tough sometimes, right? It's tough to help people that maybe think something works or doesn't work or whatever. But again, it really has been my honor. It's been my pleasure. I've enjoyed all of it. I've enjoyed meeting the neighbors. So it's been fun. And Joe, so if you want me to grab me and have me look at something at some point in time, I'd be glad to do it. But this was not necessary, but I really do appreciate it.
Well,
Thank you,
I
Dan.
second
And you know,
many
you've got,
and,
I think your whole group makes the town council's job that much easier because you're resolving problems and balancing everyone's needs at a much more informal level. And so our job by the time these projects get up to us is all the more easy. So thank you.
Yes, you're welcome. Yes.
yeah, thank you very much. It's
Okay.
been a
Elizabeth,
pleasure.
thank you.
attending
Yeah,
the
good to
ADR
see you.
meetings and watching you and working, in action.
Yeah, very much so.
I'd like to chime in also. I know that when my dad was on council, these planning items were just the hardest thing because people would come and they have so much invested, and that early review by people who, you know, have your expertise is really amazing. And I've heard from people who've gone before you and said, yeah, we ended up with a better project, and really it was a good experience. And so, yes, thank you for saving us from midnight planning items because it made the whole difference. So thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
I wanted to point out that Dan's service has gone far beyond merely looking at the properties and attending the meetings. I remember vividly driving into town over the Lagunitas Bridge during the Christmas season, and there was Dan putting the decorations on the bridge. So thanks a lot for all your help for all of us, Dan.
Yeah, you're welcome. The accolades have to go to my wife too. So Iris is right there helping me, right, Pete? Not just me. But you know, our job actually on ADR is difficult as it is. It's your job is tougher because we just have to make a recommendation. You guys have to make a decision. So, but it has been fun.
Thank you. Well, we will miss you.
Yes, thank you very much. Okay, thanks again.
Thanks, bye.
Okay,
Bye.
bye-bye.
Next, item number 6, Town Council recognition of Recreation Administrative Assistant Sue Talmadge upon her retirement.
And hey, can we get Sue on camera? Or
How was that? Is that perfect?
hi, Sue.
Hi.
Well, out of curiosity, are you going to get on camera or a video or no? Or should we do without video?
I thought it was, but I don't know. How do I do this?
Well, we could.
Ooh, look on the bottom left of your screen. There should be something that says start video.
Okay, got it.
There you are.
Sure.
Oh, okay. Hi.
Hi, Sue.
I'm fairly new to this whole thing too, so.
Well, I want to, Sue has been with Ross Recreation for, I believe, about 20 years.
Yep.
And when it transitioned, the Ross Recreation became a department of the city in town in 2014. Sue was there and has been instrumental in really Ross Recreation services to the town. And you became the bridge in between to the town services and served as the interim recreation manager and really providing excellence in services with a wonderful attitude and helpfulness to all the Ross residents, the community, and town staff. And it's been a pleasure to work with you, Sue, and very grateful that what you have done for Ross Recreation and how making it really a special programs for a small town of 2,550 to have the diversity of programs and services we've offered at a high level. And so want to say thank you. And I know Mike is out here and wants to say something. Mr. Armstrong. And so in your retirement, I wish you the best, and we'll get Mike to.
Thank
Hi,
you
Sue.
very much. Hey, Mike.
Sue was the first person I met in Ross Recreation, and she was on my interview board along with Elizabeth Breckus. And Sue, I just wanted to say thank you for your efforts and your support in transitioning the Ross Recreation program to a Town of Ross department. Quite frankly, without Sue, this would have been a rough journey. Her knowledge of the town and the community, together with her personality and her ability to deal with people and relate to people and help me manage staff, was invaluable. And I can't thank you enough for making it actually a fun endeavor. We had some interesting times in the beginning, but thanks to Sue, I used to call her the glue of the department, and that's not an overestimation. So Sue, thank you. I hope you enjoy retirement. After the COVID thing, I promised you lunch, and maybe we'll meet at the Half Day Cafe when this madness is over. But again, thank you and enjoy retirement.
Thank you, Mike. I'll keep you on to that, be there at half day sometime.
I'd like to also say the same, that, that transition was really hard on everyone I know, and myself included. And I just really appreciated your professionalism of staying in it and helping with the process. So thank you so much. Really.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Thanks.
I want to add that when my kids first started doing Ross Rec programs was about 20 years ago. And I really miss those days. Those were lovely, innocent, happy days. And Sue, you were always at every in-person sign up. You were always in the office. You were the face of Ross Rec. So you will be missed a lot by a lot of different people. So thank you for your 20 years of service. We really, really appreciate it.
Thank you, Julie. It's very sweet.
And I'd like to echo that with my own boys participating. And then when they helped lead some of the programs, Sue was there supervising them and did a wonderful job. Everything went smoothly thanks to Sue. So thank you so much, Sue. We'll miss you.
Thank you.
Thanks very much, Sue, and we appreciate particularly your help during our transition period, which could have, from a separate entity to part of the government, it could have been a real problem, but it wasn't. And I think that's largely attributable to you. So thanks a lot.
No, thank you. It's been a pleasure. The last 20 years has been a lot of fun, meeting all the families in town and working with all the kids. And it's been really great. And I hope that with Gretchen's leadership going forward, that everything, getting through this whole, the COVID thing, it's going to be tough. But I know the group that they have in there is going to be able to pull it off, and it's going to be wonderful.
Great.
Thank you. And thank you for the gifts. Really appreciate it.
Well deserved.
Thank you.
Have a great retirement.
Thank you very much.
All right. Well, that segues perfectly into item number 7. Oh, bye, Mike.
It might still be around.
There he is.
Bye-bye.
He's
Yeah, you should-
actually at the golf course, actually. So we're happy to see you at a desk. Item number 7 is the introduction of employee Gretchen Kastetz, the interim recreation manager. Joe?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Yeah, I want to introduce Gretchen. And Gretchen has, obviously, we've seen 2 people she is inheriting from, but also replacing in Sue Talmadge and Mike Armstrong. So Gretchen started at the town in 2016 as the administrative assistant, and she's been critical in running the office and operations of Ross Recreation along with Mike, and has been extremely valuable person. And she's had been thrown into quite between COVID world and smoke and the continuing, she has had the most challenge. Ross Recreation, of all the programs to run, has been probably the most impacted with everything, from office side to how do you run in-person programs. And Gretchen and the team have been extremely creative. We were one of the first departments to have online classes, and very successful online classes, put things on board. And now doing in-person classes with the 14 people, and it always changes. It was 12 people, now 14, and been instrumental in helping Ross Recreation be the special program it is. We've had a lot of parents thanking Gretchen and the camp people for running programs in this COVID time. And as they're looking desperately, kids to do something other than being stuck at home. So want to introduce Gretchen as the interim recreation manager, and she's been part of the team. And a little about Gretchen's background. She was a preschool teacher for about 10 years, including the head teacher. So that background with children is obviously fits, and as a teacher fits greatly with the team at Ross Recreation. So I want to welcome Gretchen aboard as the interim recreation manager.
Thank you. Should I say?
Oh, Gretchen.
Yes.
Yeah, so while I was working as a preschool teacher, I got my MBA from Dominican University. And so this has been a nice role to kind of bring all of that together, the business side of my past, and then also working with families and children and bringing it all into a full kind of circle. And as challenging as these times are, I feel very grateful for my staff that, we're just taking it day by day and trying to keep everyone as safe as possible and be creative and try to help these kids move their bodies and get outside. Of course, with the fires, we can't go inside, and with COVID, we're supposed to be outside. So we're doing it. We're trying to stay positive, and families can be really grateful. So that means a lot to hear that feedback from them. And Sue, thank you so much. Sue taught me so much when she was there, and such an incredible mentor and so patient, and can't thank her enough. And Mike, I don't see your face, but I learned a great deal from you too. And, big shoes to fill, and I appreciate him as a mentor, and I've been bothering him since he retired too. I don't want to be able to relax too much. So right now, yeah, we're just constantly working with the county to figure out what we can and can't do. And with schools possibly reopening, that's going to be another hurdle of how we work with that and cohorts and all of that stuff. So that's our main priority right now, and just trying to keep smiles on kids' faces and things like that. So I really appreciate it. I know this didn't all happen in the usual way it does, but I really appreciate you guys putting your trust in me, and look forward to working with the community for many years to come. So thanks a lot.
Great. Hope it has to get easier from here, right?
I hope so.
That's the good news. Yeah. Welcome.
Thank you so much.
And yeah, the rules do change daily, if not hourly at times. I'm just saying, hearing all the public health orders, the schools, the state, the county, and any of those. So Gretchen has been incredibly flexible and agile in moving the programs to do what we can in this time.
Yeah. Thank you for your support, Joe, too, and working through some of that stuff. Sometimes a lot to process.
Gretchen, I just wanted to say hang in there, and you're perfect for the job. So good luck, and anytime, contact me. I got a lot of time on my hands now. And if this smoke and COVID keeps going, I'm going to have a ton of time. I can't get on a golf course right now. So
Yeah. Well, thank you, Mike. I appreciate that.
Yeah, and Gretchen, I think you're going to do a wonderful job. It was a pleasure working with you in the beginning, and if I can help out in any way, let me know too.
Oh, thank you so much, Sue.
Great. Thank you all. What a great team you are. All right, item number 8, open time for public expression. And this is limited to 3 minutes per speaker on items that are not on our agenda. Linda, do you see anybody with their hand up?
I do not.
Okay. All right, then we don't have any open time for public expression participants then. All right. Next is item number 9, which is the mayor's report. Smoke from a record number of California wildfires continues to blanket our skies. Indeed, as of 5 o'clock tonight, we are at 199 AQI on airnow.gov, which is approaching the very unhealthy level. We thank the firefighters for quickly controlling West Marin's Woodward fire, a reminder that we all need to be better prepared. Along similar lines, in March, Marin voters approved the Marin Wildfire Prevention Authority, MWPA, and Ross voters approved this by 73.8%. This was the only tax measure on the March ballot that passed. The MWPA will implement comprehensive wildfire prevention and emergency preparedness throughout almost all of Marin for the next 10 years, with vegetation management, reduce fuels and implement cost-effective practices for fuel reduction, wildfire detection and evacuation, improve early wildfire detection, warnings, alerts, and evacuation routes, grants, provide a local grant program, seek grants and leverage local investments, public education, provide information to reduce risk, prevent wildfires, and prepare for disasters, and support Fire Safe Marin, defensible space, expand and enhance defensible space home evaluations, and local funding, provide funding for local wildfire mitigation to its 17 members. Ross will receive approximately $106,000 this year to be used for defensible space inspections and roadside and parcel vegetation removal. Since May, I have served as Ross's representative on the MWPA board. The board has held 6 startup meetings along with many other subcommittee meetings, approved a work plan and budget, and next week we will announce MWPA's first executive officer, who will begin on October 1st. The MWPA is currently recruiting citizens to serve on the Citizens Oversight Committee to ensure that MWPA's work plan and funding are accurate and coordinated, activities have been appropriately overseen by an independent auditor, an annual report on the board's actions is prepared. If you are interested in serving on the Citizens Oversight Committee, please visit marinwildfire.org and apply by September 23rd. Finally, the Marin Wildfire Prevention Authority and Fire Safe Marin will hold another Chipper Day in Ross on September 24th. To pre-register, which is required, please visit www.chipperday.com/Marin. Please be prepared, stay safe, and wear your mask, inside and outside. Next, council committee and liaison reports. Does anybody have anything? Elizabeth Breckus.
Yeah, I just want to mention last night at the fire board, there were a few things that were raised that I'll just mention. One was I asked if the weird yellow and green rushing up on Stinson's Water Coast was fire retardant, and the short answer is no. I thought that was helpful to know because I've heard people next door apparently are talking about that. And then the other thing I asked was whether there was any reduction in support from the federal government in the fires, in firefighting. And the short answer is no. That's following kind of what normally would happen. And then I also asked that it be on the agenda that we look at fire insurance because, as I mentioned at the last council meeting, I've had some problems there. And the people who inspected my home to help me support my insurance issue said that they've actually been doing a lot of those. And so we placed it on the agenda to talk about that. And apparently there was some staff indication that that is actually really happening. And I think it'd be very helpful to know about, especially as we go forward with discussion about fire safety in general and our firehouse in Ross. And so that is going to be on the agenda, and I hope to be able to report more so that we know how many people are having this problem. And that's it. Anybody else?
I wanted to just give you all a very brief update on what's going on with the Sir Francis Drake potential renaming and our committee. Just very briefly, we had a community listening session on June 26th. We had a learning session on August 17th. And the learning session is available on the Marin County Library website if any of you want to watch it. It was recorded. Since June, the county has received comments via email on the name change, close to 500 different emails with issues ranging from cost, limited time and resources, and conflicting historical accounts of Sir Francis Drake. The listening session drew over 300 viewers and participants, and the learning session drew about 200 on Zoom. We don't know how many people are watching the recording after the fact. Next steps, the managers from Larkspur, Ross, San Anselmo, and Fairfax have formed a working group that's being led by the Larkspur town manager to research process and other considerations for each of the towns, as well as key questions for business and property owners along Sir Francis Drake. And we will be having another working group meeting on October 16th, where hopefully we will hear some updates from the manager's research that's going on. Next, staff and community reports. Joe.
Thank you, Mayor and council members. Just adding some items to what the mayor was mentioning. Obviously, the Marin Wildfire Prevention Authority, the towns and cities are taking many, many steps to help better prepare the communities for wildfires and help make the community safer. One question I hear and others hear is, how do I know when it's time to evacuate? The first thing my goal was to get 100% of the people in Ross signed up for Alert Marin, and we'll continue to send out emails about it. But then obviously at times communication systems could be down. what would the town do? Well, we've used the town siren, similar to we use in flood situations in the winter months. We'd be utilizing the siren if there was a fire evacuation or, get information, use that. Also, all the police cars and the number of the fire vehicles are installed with what's high-low sirens. So typically, if it's a wildfire situation, fire's working the event and law enforcement's involved in helping evacuate people. And so the cars have a high-low siren that's kind of like the European. I won't try to imitate it, but it goes, you'll know if it's going around, it's a different sound, and we have it there. And fourth, when we have enough notice, obviously we'll use our townwide email. Obviously that depends on, do we have advance time or not to use it. But what I'd also say is everybody should be preparing to evacuate, and Fire Safe Marin has excellent resources out there. How to best prepare. And they had a webinar that we put the link in and a couple of townwide emails that is excellent. I think that should be, everybody in Marin should be watching that. It's a 1 hour of your time, well worth it. It's one thing to read and you learn one way, but it's another also then to see the video. So I turn into the Fire Safe Marin. Obviously, we'll continue to put out townwide emails periodically on different steps people could do. Moving to some public works type of projects. If you've noticed, Bolinas Avenue is, the repavement is a long way done. They put on the new pavements, obviously still have to finish the roadway, but in fact, what was our bumpiest road in town is now extremely smooth. And on the Ross, the Ellen Park tennis courts, that project, the resurfacing, that's to start later this month. So little updates there. Also business side, Ross businesses, Crown and Crumpet opened up last week. And please, asking Ross residents, please visit our downtown and our small businesses. They need your support. The health orders changed, were amended to allow indoor hair salons. So our 3 hair salons downtown are open. All our restaurants are open. For now, the restaurants are only outside dining and pickup. And just so you know, Crown and Crumpet has a big patio on the back that's a beautiful garden area. So they have seating in the back, actually more outside than they would have inside if they were allowed to seat. So anyhow, please visit our Ross businesses. And that's my update.
Great. Thank you, Joe. Ross Property Owners Association. And did you see anyone from Ross Property Owners Association that might have a report? I can't remember whose turn it is. John Kiekeffer, perhaps.
Yeah. Yes.
Great. Awesome. Thank you. John?
John, you're on mute.
You're on mute.
Here we go. Sorry about that. New system. The Ross Property Owners Association met on Tuesday, September 8th. A couple items of note. First of all, we're super excited that we set a fundraising record this year, thanks to the generosity of our members. On the project front, we are excited to be helping with the funding of the new drinking fountain at Natalie Coffin Green Park. We are actively looking for additional projects if anyone has ideas or interest in bringing that to our attention. At the meeting, we spent a considerable amount of time hearing from our members concerning their concerns regarding the Creek project, which I guess you'll all get to a little bit later. And lastly, we have agreed to incorporate the Ross Auxiliary into the RPOA to help them continue with their fundraising efforts and to work side by side in giving back to the town of Ross. And that's my report.
Thank you, John. That's all excellent. We really appreciate it. Item number 12, consent agenda. Does anyone from the town council wish to pull any item from the consent agenda? Does any member of the public wish to pull an item from the consent agenda? Linda, do you see anybody?
I don't, no.
Okay. All right, can we have a motion then to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Let's take the vote. Councilmember Breckus
Aye.
and Councilmember Kircher,
Aye.
Councilmember Cool,
Aye.
Councilmember Robbins,
Aye.
and Mayor McMillan.
Aye, thank you.
Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. Item number 13, Town Council discussion and consideration of draft comment letter regarding the August 27, 2020 Corte Madera Creek Flood Risk Management Project Environmental Impact Report Scoping Meeting. I believe that's Rich.
It is me. Thank you,
Hi,
Mayor and
Rick.
Council. Hello. So I'm going to be sharing my screen here and start the slideshow here. Go backwards. Okay, so assuming everybody can see that on the screen. So tonight we are reviewing the town's response to the project EIR scoping meeting letter. And we're going to be, that is for the upcoming EIR for the Corte Madera Creek Flood Risk Management Project Phase 1. We're going to be discussing a little bit on the CEQA process. What is an EIR and how does the scoping process fit in with the EIR, which is the stage that we are at now. And we're going to look a little bit at how CEQA defines the project alternatives within the Public Resources Code. Then we'll review the scoping letter itself, get an overview of that, talk about some of the minor revisions we want to have, and maybe we can have a little bit of a discussion on what else we'd like to add to that letter. Then we're going to talk about the next steps and where we are going with this CEQA process for the Corte Madera Creek Flood Control Project. And finally, we'll get to discussions and questions for staff from the town council. I do see that we have a few members of the Marin County Flood Control District project team, the lead agency for CEQA, in the audience. So first off, the CEQA process. So what is an environmental impact report? Very briefly, the report does not advocate for or against any project. It describes the environmental setting of the project and probable impacts and feasible ways of reducing or eliminating those impacts. It also analyzes cumulative effects, cumulative impacts, like what other projects outside the scope of the project could also impact the project. An example of this is the Winship Bridge project upstream of the Corte Madera Creek Flood Risk Reduction Project. Although it's not anticipated at any stretch of the imagination that the Winship Bridge project is going to impact the Corte Madera Creek project downstream of the Lagunitas Bridge, it still needs to be looked at. And finally, the environmental impact report does provide for alternatives to the proposed project, which is the main subject of our scoping letter, is the introduction of our alternative to what looks like to be the proposed project. And we'll talk about that in a little bit. So in the CEQA process, what is the scoping process? Where are we right now? So this, of course, takes place very early in the process to lay out the groundwork for the draft EIR. It's used to discuss what kinds of alternatives or mitigations might be useful in the upcoming preparation of the draft EIR. Many public agencies found that this early consultation solves potential problems that could arise in more serious forms later during the review of the draft EIR, the comment period for that, and the the public hearing where the EIR is actually certified. So we want to get all of these issues and potential mitigation measures out of the way very early so that they have a building block for the draft EIR. It's an effective way to bring together and resolve the concerns of affected federal and state and local agencies, the proponent, and other interested persons, including those who might not be in accord with the actions on the environmental grounds. So how does CEQA describe project alternatives, which I think being the subject of our scoping letter, let's get an idea of how the California Code and CEQA guidelines define an alternative. So an EIR shall describe a range of reasonable alternatives to the project or the location, which would feasibly attain most of the basic objectives of the project, but would avoid or substantially lessen any of the significant effects of the project, and evaluate merits and alternatives, or the merits of the alternatives. An EIR need not consider every conceivable alternative to a project. It must consider a reasonable range of potentially feasible alternatives that will foster informed decision-making and public participation. And the range of potential alternatives to the proposed project shall include those that could feasibly accomplish most of the basic objectives of the project and could avoid or substantially lessen one or more of the significant effects. The EIR shall include sufficient information about each alternative to allow meaningful evaluation, analysis, and comparison with the proposed project. So on to the scoping comment letter. Just a brief summary of it, and I have put in bold and parentheses our current suggestions of changes to the comment letter that was included as an attachment to the staff report in the agenda. So the EIR must analyze an alternative that proposes removal of the fish ladder with a nominal transition back to the existing concrete channel, which would be a minimal impact to existing Frederick Allen Park. We're calling this the fish ladder only alternative, just for tonight's conversation. The EIR should identify all the potential CEQA impacts related to replacing the existing park with a proposed floodplain park. And we listed several items that we definitely want reviewed. It's basically going to be a grading plan, a landscape plan, a plan that shows the walls, the pedestrian walkways. We want a level of detail. If the project is going to be proposing replacing Frederick Allen Park, staff wants to see a high level of detail with the trees and other landscaping and the alignment of the creek before we can make those types of decisions moving forward. Also, part of that analysis is the 25-year flood risk reduction benefits, comparing the existing conditions with the proposed conditions for all alternatives that will be in the EIR. That's going to be very important as flood risk reduction, of course, is the prime objective here. And of course, the EIR should recognize the town of Ross staff and council as both an integrated regulatory agency in the review process for design and construction activities, and as a landowner pertaining to Allen Park and other parts of the project area. The planning department, building and public works department should be included in the appropriate sections, having regulatory jurisdiction within the town limits and the public rights of way. So earlier today, we were reviewing CEQA and how it relates to project alternatives, and staff decided that we should add another bullet point to cover the introduction of any alternatives, including the fish ladder only alternatives. So we added that the EIR project description, goals, and objectives should be written such that they do not preclude the approval of a fish ladder only alternative for the portions of the project within the town of Ross. So what that means is, as the lead agency, the flood control district, is developing the EIR, and they're coming up with the goals and objectives, that those goals and objectives should not disallow the fish ladder only alternatives. So that'll be something that we'll be reviewing during the public comment period of the draft EIR, which is, I believe, about 9-10 months away, almost a year away. So what are the next steps? So after the end of the scoping period, which ends on the 21st of this month, the Flood Control District produces a scoping report listing and responding to all comments received during the scoping period. And then the Flood Control District prepares and publishes a draft EIR for public comment. And that the preparation is going to be between now and April 2021. And this is a schedule provided by the Flood Control District. And of course, it's subject to change, but we are on a fast track, and this is a likely schedule that needs to be adhered to on the pathway to success. So then the Flood Control District holds public hearing to address public comments from the draft EIR, and the Flood Control District Board of Supervisors, acting as the Flood Control District, will vote on certification of a final EIR and approval of the proposed project or an alternative with the mitigation and monitoring measures attached. And that's scheduled for July of 2021. So following the certification of the EIR by the Flood Control District, the approved project will be developed to a level of detail suitable for discretionary design review by the Ross Town Council. So they're going to present a project just like anybody else will present a project. It's a little bit different because we are also a stakeholder and a landowner, but in all other situations, it's very similar to any sort of design review process. And without design review approval, the project cannot be constructed, of course. So that ends my presentation. And so we'll open it up back to the Town Council for question, comments, and suggestions. Thank you.
Thank you, Rich. I have a quick question on the design review. Does that include ADR review as well?
Maybe Patrick can answer that if he would. I believe it would be prudent to do that in the planning process. So
yeah, and based on the criteria we have for requiring design review, one of the steps is that it goes in front of ADR before going to the council for action. So we'd follow that same course with this project.
Thank you. Other questions? Elizabeth Breckus? You're muted. There you go. Oh, we're still not hearing you.
Sorry about that. I just wondered, I thought the request for additional information was really good, but I just wondered if, given the removal of trees and the implications for shade around that area and for the effect of people and fish, I wondered if we shouldn't ask for information of like, what is the immediate effect versus what is the effect in 5 years, 10 years, so we kind of understand that. That's it. Thanks.
So under the list of our requirements for if the floodplain park went forward, you're suggesting we add an additional request for what are the immediate impacts if at the beginning of the vegetation stage to fish passage and that sort of thing. Is that correct?
Yeah, what's the immediate impact? And then like, if we went forward with it, in 5 years, it's gonna be different. In 10 years, it's gonna be different. If we're like taking out trees and planting new ones, I imagine that's kind of a different thing. It's not like forever, but at the same time how long is it? How long is it that we'll live without shade in this park? So I thought that might be helpful.
Great. Any other questions?
Yes.
Each.
Well, let me ask, are we supposed to only be asking questions at this point or also making comments?
I thought we would ask questions now, and then we would open it up to the public for comments, and then we would bring it back and discuss and give any additional comments to Rich for the letter. Are you a question person or a comment person?
I'm a comment person.
Okay, all right. Any other questions?
Well,
Julie, I have a question.
Okay.
Rich, I wonder, could you clarify, what are the time points where the town of Ross has a specific yes or no vote, the town's input on this project? Where does the town have input? As far as a vote, like a yes or no, yes, this goes forward, or no, it doesn't.
That would be at the discretionary design review process. That's the yes or no vote.
So that's a yes or no vote on the part of the town council.
That's correct.
Okay.
So that would end, if you vote no on that design review project as submitted by the flood control district, that would end the project, or they would need to come back with a revised project that would still be in compliance with the EIR.
And you said the design review stage is sometime next spring or summer. When did you expect that to happen?
So with the certification of the EIR in July 2021, I don't have the rest of the schedule, but I would think they would need 9 months to a year to develop, or actually the level of design review, maybe 6 months. So you're looking at the winter of 2021, December, January would be realistic, but perhaps a member of flood control district could answer that question during public comment, or now at your pleasure.
If they have more information, they're welcome to provide that information now.
They would need to raise their hand so I can identify them.
Great. Flood control people, raise your hand if you know that answer.
Let's see, I don't.
Joanna Dixon, if you could.
Oh, there she is. Okay. Rich, can you close your shared screen so I can maneuver? Thank
There you
you.
go.
Everyone.
Okay, we have Joanna Dixon here.
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me?
Hi,
This is
Joanna. We can't see you.
Oh, sorry.
It's okay.
There I am.
Here you are.
Hi, everyone. So I just wanted to quickly address the schedule in that because we have an expedited construction window for all construction to occur and be completed by the end of the year 2022, we would greatly appreciate the design review process to occur as quickly as we have something to submit to the town of Ross for consideration. And so, yes, in alignment with Richard's suggestion, we would appreciate that to happen hopefully by the end of 2021 if possible. I think our earliest date for construction to begin on portions of the overall project, not necessarily the portion in Ross, would be in either early March or April of 2022.
Thank you. Any other questions, council members? Okay,
Just a
then.
clarification, Mayor.
Yes.
Right now, we're just asking questions about the process. I do have some suggestions for changes to the letter, but am I correct that that would come during the comment?
Yes, that's right.
Thank
Yes,
you.
thanks. So now let's open it up to the public for any kind of comment that the public wishes to make. Linda, I'm hoping you can help me with this.
Yes, so first is going to be Samantha Hobart.
Hi, my name is Samantha Hobart. I live at 78 Sir Francis Drake. I'd like to make 2 points this evening. One is on removing the trees from Frederick Allen Park. And the second is unfortunately just overall lack of trust and confidence in the flood district and what they've given the residents of Ross. So first on the trees, the flood district points out concern for shade with the removal of the mature trees. However, we all know that in addition, the root systems of these mature trees are an integral part of flood prevention and protection. So while I too am concerned about the removal of shade, removing these root systems will cause significant damage and increased risk to flooding, which I believe is the priority. So I'm not sure if the focus should be distracted by lack of shade or if we should be focusing more on the risk of flooding. It's just a common point to address. Secondly, with my overall experience with the flood district, I'm someone that likes to give everyone the benefit of the doubt and second chances. And I continually wish for the flood district to show their worth. However, every time we look, there's continued errors. I've mentioned before that when it comes to flooding my home, I'm not comfortable with their errors. And if I catch one error, I'm confident that there's multiple more. Some examples are, as we all know, changing the promised mitigation measures in the EIR. This is down with the San Anselmo flood project. Removing the homes impacted from originally promised mitigation. I'm not sure how we can trust that the flood district will do what they say they're going to do. There's been errors in the flood district presentations to the Board of Supervisors where numbers are off by over $1 million. And I know I'm not telling you anything that you don't already know and haven't already experienced as the town council, but I'm just frustrated. I'm one of the property owners that the flood district has agreed to support. However, they're only mitigating risk for my detached office space. While I have a small home and this space is important to me, during a flood, I would need to leave my home and walk through my flooding yard to access safe space in my detached office. Most recently, the flood district has hired Harrison Associates to come to my home, and during a visit, the representative, Carl Walker, the hired consultant, asked me how I financed purchasing my property. As a single woman, I find this highly unethical and I'm personally offended. This type of behavior should not need to be tolerated from the residents, and I ask the town to support me in removing this type of behavior. I give these examples this evening on how the flood district has given us every reason to question their intent. I'd like to clarify, I'm not trying to get anyone in trouble. I'm simply trying to get anyone to help support the residents by realizing the work from the flood district is straight out wrong and unethical. I know this is complicated and not straightforward, so I appreciate everyone's time, but I'd like to please again ask for the support from the town to protect the residents. Thank you.
Thank you, Samantha. Linda, are there more?
Yes, next is, I don't know the name, it's just the initials GGP.
I bet that's Garrel Page.
Okay.
It is Garrel Page, sorry.
Hello, Garrel.
Zoom is really strange. Sometimes I'm Garrel and sometimes I'm GGP, and there's just no rhyme or reason to it. Sorry about it. The county EIR, their selected plan, is using the Corps EIR Alternative J without the Sir Francis Drake bypass, which conveniently removes the most problematic and relevant portions of Ross's Unit 4 from study and comment. From station 390, Alternative J collected creek flow and carried it under Sir Francis Drake downstream to station 368 adjacent to 15 Sir Francis Drake, where the bypass culverts re-entered the concrete channel. Alternative J assumed diverted flow for Unit 4 from the end of Sylvan Lane and Sir Francis Drake past the fish ladder for 130 feet into the concrete channel. If the bypass is removed, flood flows remain in the creek and the channel. So why is the county consultant basing this current EIR on a substantially modified project that is irrelevant to the actual conditions in Ross? Panorama's county agreement states under technical studies, contractor will use existing studies and reports to the extent feasible to maximize efficiency. The purpose of the review is to identify potential gaps in data required for environmental analysis. What is not addressed is increased liability, The EIR-EIS repeatedly states alternative J increases flooding downstream of Ross. Also missing is function, hydraulics, hydrology, flood protection. The county wants environmental studies to capture grant money, but Ross wants flood control. The council members have repeatedly asked for project alternatives, such as described in the EIR for the fish ladder, which is the fish ladder would be replaced with a combination of natural stream substrate material and biotechnical bank treatments to create a smooth transition that would meet fish passage criteria in all action alternatives. Activities would occur primarily in the channel, leaving most of the riparian vegetation intact. Removal of the fish ladder and construction of a naturalistic channel at this location would be beneficial to aesthetic quality and scenic integrity. Yes, Ross should ask for an alternative project, not an irrelevant secondhand EIR. And a new process is the path that gets you there. Playing along with this EIR for 10 months does not. Nancy Reagan time. Thank you.
Thank you, Carol.
All right, next we have John Crane.
Hi, can you hear me? This is John.
Hi,
Crane.
John. Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, first I want to give a shout out to the Marin firefighters. They've done an incredible job, and God bless all the firefighters out there. This is when we really need them. As far as I can tell, Ross, the town of Ross, is going to receive very limited benefit from this project. And some of the other projects in the pipeline for the county are going to increase floodwaters. And my concern is that now that Alt J bypass tunnel has been removed, this project has been piecemealed into smaller sections. What I mean by that is the San Anselmo Flood Risk Reduction Project ends at Sir Francis Drake Bridge. And this one used to start in Unit 4 downstream of Sir Francis Drake Bridge, but right now it only picks up again at the fish ladder. So there's a huge gap between Sir Francis Drake Bridge, Lagunitas Bridge, the post office, and the fish ladder. What happens to those homes? Some of those homes are in a repetitive loss situation. So I think that's a problem. I think the question before the council tonight is whether or not the town of Ross and residents should be expected to fund county projects outside of Ross while taking on maintenance costs as well as liabilities with no indemnification from the county. They're not going to be accountable for it. They're not going to be responsible for their actions, and we're left holding the bag. As we all know, from the fish ladder downstream, that's a small portion of Ross. So a lot of Ross is being left out of this. I personally feel that this is an opportunity for the town council to be a voice of reason and protect residents from the county's flawed flood plans. I mean, we've been doing this for a while. The spending is out of control. It's going to cause harm. My home is going to be at risk of flooding. And I've enjoyed 100 years worth of flood protection. The people on Sylvan Lane are at risk of being flooded, and some of those have enjoyed 100 years worth of flood protection. So I think, as I reviewed the minutes from December 14th, 2017, where the county says the stakeholder, which is Ross, has considerable power over the design review, needs to exercise that, because it's an opportunity for the town council to be the voice of reason and protect residents from the county's flawed plans, out of control spending, harmful actions, and ineffective leadership. They need to understand what Ross wants and needs. And this is our opportunity to advocate for the residents of Ross. And one thing we really need
John,
is...
your time is up, so if you could wrap it up really quickly, that'd be great.
Okay, we need full disclosure from the county, and we need to have the time to process that information so we can make an informed decision. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, next we have Leslie.
Hello.
Hi, Leslie.
Hi. Yes, I was. I wanted to bring up the issue of the runoff water outside the creek that was a source of flooding for some areas of the town. It is not addressed in this project. A couple years ago in that EIR, the Army Corps acknowledged it was a problem, but they hadn't come up with any details on how to address it. I mentioned it at one of the recent public workshops that were hosted by the new consultant in county. And there was no response to that issue. It's a problem not only in terms of being a source of flooding, the water itself, but if they construct flood walls, they can possibly trap that water behind the flood walls, creating worse flooding, or overflow water, if this design they've come up with is incorrect, could also become trapped behind those walls. Thank you.
Leslie, you're Leslie O'Connell, right?
That's correct.
Okay, great. Thank you.
I don't see any other raised hands at this time. If anyone has any comment to make, now is the time. Here we go. Charlie.
Charlie, are you there?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Great. Thank you. I would first of all like to just echo what both Gerald and John had to say. The issue is that with this alternative J, where I live, which is at the confluence of Sylvan Lane and Corte Madera Creek, I am completely left out of the project. They are, and in fact, even when I commented on it, I think it was Liz Lewis that said, well, we're only taking comments about this portion of the project, which was actually the fish ladder and downstream of the concrete channel. I wanted to just mention a couple of points. One is that at the July meeting, Beach asked specifically to Liz, is your target to provide 25-year protection? And interesting, I played it back 2 or 3 times to finally hear what Liz Lewis actually said. And her comment was, yeah, we're looking at anything from a range of 10-year event to what we would like to have a 25-year flow event. Well, that is way below what we have been sold on this project. I mean, we have supercritical flow through that portion of the concrete channel. And I don't understand why we would want to accept the liability and harm our residents to go from a supercritical speed down to some speed somewhere between a 10 and a 25-year level. And that makes no sense to me. To go on a little bit further, the problem with the sediment basin that they have is we can't get any information as to how they're going to remove the sediment. And I talked to the council back in at April 2019 and talked to you about the numbers of truckloads that would have to be removed based on these calculations. But when you ask the county about it, they don't have any calculations. So we're being asked to go down this road with no information. And I think it's really at the point where we need to stop this process because the process is wrong. The county is not looking properly on this EIR with alternative J. We need to stop this right now and tell the county that we want to see a project that is removing the fish ladder and tying it into the concrete channel. And I know it can be done. There was a study done. I sent it to you in that April 2019. It was done by a fellow, Mike Love, out of Arcadia, California. And that study was done for the Friends of Corte Madera Creek.
Charlie, hey, Charlie, I
do that.
gotta tell you that your time is up. So if you could just
Thank
wrap it up, that'd be great.
I think I got it all across, Julie. Thank you very much. I just hope the council will do the right thing. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Charlie.
Okay, I don't see any other raised hands. If anyone has any comment, now is the time to raise your hand. Nope, Mayor, I don't see any more.
Okay, thank you, Linda, for your help with that.
Okay.
Rich, are you still around? Are you still on the call? There you are. I'm wondering if you could put up the bullet point that you've added, as well as the sentence that you modified, changing the should to a must. Okay, so I think my view is that that point about doing the fish ladder only project is very important, and we must have that in there in our letter to encourage the county to go ahead and look at that as an alternative. And I think that's the most important thing in the letter, and I'm hoping that I can get consensus from each of you that you agree that that statement with the must should be in the letter. So maybe we could just go around and everyone can give their opinion, and then we, assuming none of the other points are as critical as that first point, I don't think we need to go through each of the other points. We can just have a general discussion about the other points, but let's just address that main item first.
I'm in agreement.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Anybody else?
So am I. I'm in agreement.
Agree. I agree as well. Very critical.
I agree, and I have several other comments.
Great. Okay, so we all five of us agree on that first point. So now let's just have a general discussion about any other points any of you want to make. Beach, you can go first.
Thank you. Having in mind that all we are addressing right now is the wording of a letter that we're going to send, and that we're a long way from the point where we get to exercise our power to determine what the project ultimately is going to be. I still think there are several other things that we should request by way of comment in the draft EIR. First of all, Charlie addressed this, and perhaps others did. The EIR and EIS from which we were working and by which we were given some figures about how much effect on the extent of the flooding the various alternatives would have. I think we should request that the draft EIR, which is to be prepared, should indicate what the effect is going to be on those homes on Sylvan Lane in particular, because this is a major change from what was being proposed when the Corps of Engineers was involved in drafting the EIR, EIS. basically, as I understand it, the main or a major cause of the flooding was that the stream bed from at Sylvan Lane and down to our Lagunitas Bridge was an area where water got out of the creek because it just wasn't what existing conditions just weren't enough to handle the amount of water that was going to come down. So I think we need to ask exactly what's the effect going to be, any improvement at all, if nothing is done other than the two things that are now proposed, that is to say, changing the contour of the park and the fish ladder removal. We need to know where's that leave Sylvan Lane. And we also need to know where is Sylvan Lane left if we just remove the fish ladder. So that's one of the things that I think has got to be put in this letter. I also, as I understand it, the Winship Bridge project, well, or maybe I should not say that. I want to know whether the Winship Bridge project and the San Anselmo project are going to have any effect on what happens in Ross. And if so, what's that effect going to be? And because apparently both of those are going to go forward. I want to know what those effects are going to be so that we have an overall picture. We end up with an overall picture of exactly what we're going to gain under each of the proposed possible alternatives. Otherwise, this draft EIR, to my mind, is going to be meaningless and won't help us when we come ultimately to make a decision about what we do and don't do. And finally, another point that was addressed by, I think it was Samantha, was the issue of maintenance and indemnity. I think this draft EIR, I have some question in my own mind whether it's really an environmental impact or not, but I think it is kind of, and that is to have some statement in the draft EIR about who's going to pay for the maintenance and indemnity, because that's a potential major expense and exposure to the town. So that's what I think. Thank you.
Great. Other comments?
I've got some.
Go ahead, Bill.
Good time. Okay. Just starting with the less important, the more minor ones, there's a reference in the letter to trees and the size of trees being removed. I would suggest we also ask for a specification of the location of the trees that are being removed. Which ones? I mean, some of them are obvious right along the creek bank, but the others aren't that obvious. So it would be helpful to know which ones we're going to lose and which ones would remain. Echoing what Beach just said about the impact of projects that are underway now, replacement of the Winship Bridge, and also the San Anselmo flood reduction project. I hope that, or what I would like to see is that any comparison that we get between our baseline, in other words, what we have now, but also the baseline of what we will have if we don't do anything. What will we have when these other projects are completed? So there are really two baselines. And then I'd like to see that contrasted with what we would have in terms of flood reduction if we just did the fish ladder, or if we did the whole thing that they're proposing, reconfigure the creek basin. What's the difference? And the letter as drafted now, I think, is not that specific about what we're looking for. And I'd hate to have us go through this process and get an answer that's not specific enough, that we can't use, and where we have to say, let's go back and do this again because this just isn't useful enough for us. We can't make a decision based on this. So I'd really like to see a detailed, well-supported comparison of the different alternatives. My understanding so far is that the reconfiguring of the creek bed beyond the removal of the fish ladder may contribute to the flood risk reduction, but it's a minor contribution. But we would need more details to evaluate that, because what we want to know is it material? Is it significant? Not whether there is or isn't. Is it material? Is it, it's a cost benefit type of analysis. So I'd suggest perhaps some rewording of the portion of the letter. It was on the second page of what Rich put up about the comparison. I think the wording of the letter is we'd like an illustration of the existing project versus all the alternatives. But I mean, it's not just what exists now, it's what will exist in a year or 2 years when the Winship Bridge is rebuilt and when San Anselmo completes its project. Because there's going to be more water coming down the creek. There has to be. Otherwise, why are we doing it? Or why is San Anselmo doing it? They're doing it so the water's not flooding San Anselmo. Where's the water going to go? It's going to come downstream. And so we have a larger volume of water to handle now than we had before. Finally, I think in terms of the comparison, we need to have a comparison both as to the 25-year reduction and the 10-year reduction. Those are different things. I've watched what is available on the flood district. Now there are some GIFs, animated visuals there showing what's to be expected on a 10-year scenario versus a 25-year scenario. They're different. There are different flows. There are different ways the water leaves the stream bed. And so I think we ought to look at it from different angles, or maybe even expand it beyond that. I don't know what would be meaningful, 5 years, 10 years, 25 years, because I think the effects could be different. And then, so anyway, I'd like to see some further specification on the part of the letter that asks for a comparison. And then finally, echoing what Charlie said about the sediment, there will be sediments that get deposited in the expanded creek bed area. It remains, I think, to be determined and negotiated who's responsible for that. Is it the flood district? Is it Ross? To remove that to the extent it needs to be removed. But we can't deal with it unless we know what it is. How much sediment's going to be left there when the waters rise up in that new basin that'll be created? And not just sediments, but organic materials, things that need to be removed. How much? And how what's the scope of that issue, and how impactful will it be? And then finally, just in case I haven't added too much here, hydrology, as I understand it, is, I guess it's a science, it's an engineering type science, but my understanding is it's kind of uncertain. It really depends on so many different factors. It's a little like the weather. If you have enough information going in, you can predict the weather, but that's the problem. Everything affects everything else. And I would like some feedback on, when we do get these estimates, how reliable are they? And I think that's important. There's always a margin of error. There's always a confidence level in any kind of prediction. And the information we get is going to be a prediction about what will happen when it rains a lot. So how confident can we be? And I think that's important, because if we go with the full project, we're getting something, but we're giving something up. What we're getting the removal of the fish ladder. What we're giving up is a concrete channel that's been there for a long time, and we know how it performs. But we're going to put something else in, and it's going to be untested. We're going to have predictions. Yes, it can carry the same amount of water and so on, but I'd like to know how certain are the people who are making that prediction How certain are they? We do not want to end up with something worse. We want something better. All right, I'm done. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. Great comments. Either of the Elizabeths?
Well, I will just mention that I think that the staff's additions, the word must, and then the other conditions or the comments, I think those are very helpful. You know, since this is an environmental impact, I'm not sure if we totally addressed the impact on the whole area of if the Allen Park element is done, of removing all of the trees. Right now we have a narrow area of a channel and a lushly vegetated park area. And if the Allen Park element goes through, we basically will have a very much widened creek bed, which won't have any trees because you can't plant trees in a creek bed. The water is just going to wash it away. And the widened creek bed requires flood walls on both sides, and we can't plant trees within 15 feet of either side of a flood wall. And so while there's talk of this, you know, remaining a park, I kind of just see it as a much widened creek bed with a flood wall and not a lot of places for trees to go because they can't go in the creek bed and they can't go near the flood walls. And that is an environmental impact. It's especially an impact, I've been told, on fish traveling upstream, that shade is important. And so I'm not sure if that's included in our concerns, but it should be. It's also an aesthetic issue if we were to, you know, replace Allen Park with this widened creek bed, but I'm not sure if the aesthetic issue is part of the EIR. So the environmental issue of the trees, I think, is one thing maybe we should be adding. I do agree with Bill and Beach's concerns. I'm not quite sure how we do that, if we, you know, redo the letter and add that and then meet back to approve it or what, but we can talk about that. But I mean, I think the comments thus far are certainly things that I agree with.
Elizabeth Breckus.
I think I'm going to go last more often. I thought that Beach and Bill's comments were excellent. I agree with a lot of them. I was going to try and bring in some of those points. I would just want to expand it, not just Sylvan Way, but I think Sir Francis Drake at certain points also floods. So we should really look at and ask for an explanation of that. And, you know, my only other prior comment was just, can we get an idea of what the trees will be like, not just at the time of removal, but maybe as things progress. That's it. Thank you.
I don't have anything to add. I think all those comments were excellent. Process-wise, my preference would be, I'm hoping that Rich and Joe have enough flavor of the comments that have been discussed tonight that we can give them license to modify the letter and go forward. But if anyone feels uncomfortable about that, and if we want to have another meeting to see a revised letter, we could always do that. I think, when's the cutoff for the comments? September 21st or something? Yeah, so how do people feel? Beach.
Both from the standpoint of the practicality of drafting things by committee, which I think doesn't work, and my confidence in Joe and Rich to amend the letter to add the comments that they've heard. I think we ought to just leave it to staff to amend the letter to reflect what all of us have had to say.
So I agree with that. There wouldn't really, it would be to add to the letter. So everything that is in the letter now stays as it is, and then there's some additions. Is that how it would be?
Yeah, I think the sentence that Bill was focused on, he wanted it modified or expanded. So I guess that's adding to that sentence on page 2.
I don't see that any of us disagree with anything that's now in the letter. So it's just making additions to reflect the comments that we've made tonight.
Yeah. It seems like there's consensus that we can have staff go ahead and modify the letter based on all the comments that we have made tonight and go forward. Okay.
Do we vote on that, or we just move ahead?
You can vote if you'd like to motion to approve the letter with to incorporate the comments at tonight's meeting.
Okay.
So moved.
Second.
All right, let's take the vote. Councilmember Breckus.
Aye.
And Councilmember Kircher.
Aye.
Councilmember Cool.
Aye.
Councilmember Robbins.
Aye.
And Mayor McMillan.
Aye.
All right, that passes.
Rich, I have one question. We're asking to have an alternative. We're asking a lot of things. We're asking for a lot of information, but also to investigate an alternative. When would that be presented? When would we see that, that alternative?
So we're going to get a scoping report from the county, which will address our letter. So that will be hopefully a satisfactory response to our request at that point. Not sure of the timing of that, but I think it's going to be not too long after the 21st. So we should know, I think sometime in October, the official response to our comments.
Okay. If I may, I think the other question you're asking is, when will we actually see the alternative and what that looks like? And that would be after they release the draft EIR.
And the draft, when does that come out again, the draft EIR?
The EIR that we had before listed a dozen or so alternatives that they came up with, and I presume that the same would be the case here if they agree with us that these alternatives are worthy of consideration. The county's EIR would list the alternatives and provide information about what would occur under each of them.
We can, according to the county's schedule, we expect to draft EIR by April of 2021.
Okay. And then I just one question. If we're asking for, alternative projects, is it right that, does the county, do they have I guess I'm wondering if we're asking for alternatives and one of the alternatives is a fish ladder only project, does that conflict with the county's current interest, that is the grant funding requires a park, and removing the fish ladder wouldn't have a park, or would they just find another place to put a park? I mean, maybe that's just down the road and something we don't pay attention to now.
Beach, you have a comment?
I think it is down the road. Tonight, we're just drafting a letter.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, I think that's right.
Okay.
Okay, so we're going to move on now to item number 14, which is town manager update and council discussion on town activities in response to COVID-19. Joe?
Here you go. Well, thank you, Mayor and council members. Just a short update on some of the COVID things going on. As you're aware, the state recently changed the system that counties go under and the tier system. And Marin County was initially placed in the purple, which if I recall is tier 1. Has the most restrictions. The new state system's really going to dictate what types of businesses could open when. Before it was kind of a hybrid and more county driven. With this new system, really, once the state sees you move into another tier, that's going to say what type of businesses could be open. You're going to see, in effect, where you saw counties throughout the Bay Area doing different things. I think now you're going to see, if you're in a tier, you're going to be pretty much doing this similar things across counties, unless a county wants to be more restrictive than the state. But so it's really a much more state-driven process moving forward. The county, by all the indications, thought they were going to move up. There was like a 3-week period, and I was in a call with Dr. Willis today, the public health officer. Thought, you know, all indications were they were going to move up the tier this past starting Monday or Tuesday. They got word from the state Monday night, no. And part of it was a 3-week test. The county passed the 2 tests, 2 weeks. And the 3rd week, they had an outbreak at a Novato. Well, they tested every resident in a Novato assisted living place and had like 40 plus cases. So it was because of a lot of testing, they found a lot of cases that pushed the number too high. The county thought they were getting benefits from a lot of, because we test a lot more in Marin County than most counties per capita. Anyhow, the bottom line is the state put it there. There's still some looking at data. The county's appealing. The appeal could happen as early as Monday. They're expecting to hear back Monday or Tuesday from the state whether at this time we'll move up or if not, and we're staying in the purple category. As I mentioned in my earlier comments, the hair salons are able to open indoors because they did make modifications. Most personal services are not allowed to be open when we're in this purple tier. And indoor dining is not allowed. Once we move to the next tier, I think it's 25% of the seats, if I recall, could be used for indoor dining. So, you know, obviously adjusting to this, but we'll see what happens. But it was a very confusing time. I got the emails Monday evening, and I think the county said they learned just Monday evening, and all these businesses were set to go, so they allowed them to open Tuesday, but then now they got shut down, those that did not, were the businesses that you could do in the red zone that you can't do in the purple. Related to other things in Ross, was notified couple weeks back by Ross School that they are looking to bring kids back beginning next week in small groups, and that's going to, in effect, with our August council meeting and what the school's looking for and the council's resolution starting September 15th, where the common will no longer allow dogs on the common. They'll be prohibited, so we can support the school and building a learning environment, since most school is going to be outdoors. Obviously, air quality is going to throw hopefully air quality changes. This is dynamic, and this is what we're saying in Ross Recreation and School. All these things are dynamic with air quality, but their plan, the school, is to open the small groups next week. Obviously, air quality could probably change that, depending where we're at there. And then their plan is to start school, bring back everyone on campus by September, in the week of September 29th. Obviously that could change, this is fluid. When school's in session, as I say, once the trigger on September 15th, dogs will be prohibited on the common, and the public will be during school session times and before and right after, no public on the north part of the common, with the grove with the trees, because there will be students happening there, and also blocking off during school hours some section of the sidewalk that goes by the blacktop. And I think that is my COVID update. If anybody has any questions related to any of the COVID, let me know, but that's what I was had for today, but available for any questions if you have any. Councilmember Robbins.
Just two quick things. So I understand the schools need to have parts of the common kept free of people wandering through. A map that shows that would be helpful if it was posted in the post office maybe, because then people go to the post office a lot, even during COVID, and it would be a helpful reference so you can sort of see where can you walk and where you can't walk. So that's one comment. And then the other comment was, or sort of a question. So now that dogs aren't allowed anywhere on the common anytime, they're not prohibited from the grassy area across from the common by the post office. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, and that could be anytime, 24/7.
24/7, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and just so you know, the signs, we were talking about the signs, the school's planning on putting out on right before the school starts for the public, like some kind of barricades with the little ropes with a message on sidewalks leading in. But I think we will post at the post office, but we thought it's too confusing to put the sign, no dogs anytime, and try and mix out in what parts of the common on a sign on the common and for hours of school hours. It just, so the school is gonna kind of put things out, and obviously we'll see how that works. They need it to work. They cannot have the public entering what really is going to become kind of school learning space, just for the safety and a lot of reasons. So we're going to see it. Maybe we adjust, obviously, when we see if it's working or not. The signage are ways to block the key entries in. But for the most part, I think the public will be, once they see the kids out there, I would expect people have been great at respecting the space of the school. So, but we may need to adjust. Obviously, Mike, Dr. McDowell and I had a conversation about this Friday. So, you know, it's, and then emailing this week with the change of the state status, if that was changing anything.
Elizabeth Breckus, did you have a question?
No, it got answered. Thank you.
Okay, anybody else? Okay, thank you, Joe.
Thank you.
The next item is item number 15, 400 Upper Toyon Road, annexation, pre-zoning, and general plan amendment, and Planning Commission consideration of adoption of resolution number 2179. Patrick.
Thank you, Mayor McMillan and members of the council. So I'm going to share my screen here. So the project before you, the council is currently sitting as Planning Commission for this item. It is the annexation pre-zoning and general plan amendment for 400 Upper Toyon Road. And a little bit of background on the project. In March of 2017, an application was submitted to the Local Agency Formation Commission, better known as LAFCO, to detach properties from San Rafael and attach them or annex them into Ross. So that application was for 400 Upper Toyon. The property is currently developed with a single family home as well as the private road that leads to it. And in August of last year, LAFCO annexed that property as well as 4 small adjacent properties that contain Marin Municipal Water District parcels, including one of the tanks that you can see in this aerial photo. This is not the process, the order that the process is supposed to go in for this type of project. You may have noticed I mentioned it's annexation pre-zoning. Ideally, what happens is the jurisdiction that is receiving the property pre-zones the property so that when it becomes part of that city or town, it already has zoning on it. So in this case, because it's already been annexed, the properties are in the town of Ross, but they don't have any zoning and they don't have any general plan. So in order for any kind of development to occur or for any kind of code enforcement to occur, we need to get those properties properly zoned. So as I mentioned, the town will be assigning a general plan designation. So that's what the town envisions for future development to look like, as well as a zoning district. And that's the the code of rules that apply to the land. The town has already entered into a tax share agreement with the city of San Rafael for provision of services to these properties. The road itself is privately maintained, so there's no fiscal impact to the town regarding that annexation for the roadway. And as I mentioned, no new development is proposed on these parcels. It's really just a mapping exercise. So here's what's being proposed. On the left hand of the screen is what currently exists, except that the boundary for the town of Ross goes out across those 4 parcels on the, I think it's the northern edge of this property. I may have turned it a little bit. Or actually, no, I think that's the eastern edge. And so the picture on the right shows what would happen if this rezoning and this general plan amendment took place. Staff is recommending that they be zoned consistently with the adjacent parcels, which would be R1 B5A, single family with a 5-acre special lot size, and zoned into the very low density general plan, which allows for 0.1 to 1 unit per acre. The properties with the zoning in San Rafael were R2A, which is 2-acre properties with a hillside overlay, and hillside residential general plan designation. So those are consistent. So there won't be any changes to basically the overriding rules for the land should this rezoning take place. The project was reviewed in accordance with the California Environmental Quality Act. Marin LAFCO is the lead agency for this, so we're just a responsible agency. So they did consider CEQA when they performed the annexation through resolution number 1905 in August of last year. They found it categorically exempt with a class 19 exemption, which allows for annexations and changes of jurisdiction for property. So with that, staff is recommending that the council, as Planning Commission, adopt resolution 2179, which would recommend that the town of Ross assign assessors parcels 012, 121, 28, 22, 05, and 04 to the single family residential 5-acre minimum lot size zoning district, and assign the parcels a Ross general plan land use designation, a very low density, 0.1 to 1 units per acre. And I should mention also that the council is acting as the planning commission now. The government code requires that the planning commission make a recommendation to the council. So in effect, the council is making a recommendation to yourselves that at your next meeting, you will actually pass an ordinance which makes these changes if you choose to accept this resolution. So it's a little strange considering that the council and the planning commission are a single body in this jurisdiction, but that's the process that we have to follow. So you will be seeing this again, hopefully at the October meeting. And that concludes staff's presentation.
Thank you, Patrick. Any questions from the council members? I don't see any questions. All right, can we have a motion? We need a motion for a recommendation.
Oh, public comment, Mayor?
Oh, I'm sorry. Public comment, sorry.
I don't see any raised hands. Going once, going twice. No.
Thank you, Linda.
Move to approve.
Second.
All right, let's take the vote. Councilmember Breckus.
Aye.
And Councilmember Kritcher.
Aye.
Councilmember Cool.
Aye.
Councilmember Robbins.
Aye.
And Mayor McMillan.
Aye.
And the motion passes unanimously.
Thank you, Patrick.
Thank you.
Next, item number 1633 Bolinas Avenue, design review, non-conforming permit and variance, and town council consideration of adoption of resolution number 2180. Matthew.
Thank you, Mayor and council members. Planner Matthew Weintraub. The project is the Tracy residence at 33 Bolinas Avenue. Andrew Rogers is the architect and applicant. And the project site is located on the south side of Bolinas Avenue, west of Shady Lane. It is a flat, relatively small lot that is subject to flooding during major storm events. The property is located within FEMA's 100-year floodplain. This is the existing site plan with Bolinas Avenue in the front of the property on the right side, and the rear of the property on the left side. The existing residence was constructed in approximately 1938. Between 1956 and 2015, a total of 3 variances were granted for minor additions and alterations. The property is currently non-conforming with respect to floor area, building coverage, and the side setbacks. And we can see the side setbacks here are approximately 4 feet and 5 feet and a few inches. This is the proposed site plan. The project proposes to lift the existing residence by 5 feet in its current location in order to elevate the habitable space out of the floodplain. So the location of the building does not change. So I'll briefly move back to the existing site plan. So you can see the existing footprint, and the proposed footprint shows the building in the exact same location. The changes in plan view would be the addition of a front porch across the front of the entire front elevation of the property, as well as new front steps. And in the rear of the property, or I should say at the rear of the building, the rear decks and patios would be reduced in footprint to what you see currently. And there's no proposal to do any changes at the backyard of the property with the existing pool and pool shed. So this is the front. These are the existing and proposed front elevations, showing the lifted structure on the right side with the new crawl space enclosed with stone veneer. In addition to the new front entrance and covered porch, which are shown on the drawing, the project includes updated windows and fenestration around the entire building. There are 2 proposed design options for the new rear elevation, which are shown here. They differ only in the 2nd-story rear deck railing design. On the left, a glass panel railing design is preferred by the applicant. On the right, a wood railing design is recommended by the ADR group. The applicant prefers the clear railing design primarily for the views that it provides and the openness to the backyard. The ADR group recommended the wood railing because it matches, it would match the front, the new front porch. Staff's recommendation is that either or both of these designs is compatible with the standards and criteria for design review. Staff does agree that the wood railing would match the front elevation and would provide a more consistent architectural design. However, staff notes that due to the sort of close quarters of the way the buildings are designed and the way the properties are located, there's going to be very few opportunities for anyone to perceive both the front and the rear elevation at the same time, except in drawings. And so for that reason, staff recommends that that really either or both of these designs would meet the design review criteria. The colors and materials that are proposed are consistent, trend towards darker and neutral tones. The materials that are proposed would match the existing residence, including the addition of the new masonry base. The project would also renovate the front yard area with a new wood fence and gates, new planter boxes with ornamental screening trees, including actually more trees than are shown in this drawing, and new permeable stone paver walkways and driveway. So basically an entire new front yard presentation. As part of this front yard renovation, the project would seal off the existing Cold War era bomb shelter, which is located under the front yard. Here in the site plan, we can see the existing front yard and the location of the existing bomb shelter. The project would remove the existing above grade entrance, which is shown here, a concrete structure with a non-original plywood door. And the project would also preserve the below grade chambers in place, essentially. So removing the access to the chamber, but preserving the space and sealing it off in order to put a new driveway on top of that space. The advisory design review group reviewed the project design on June 16th and July 21st. The ADR group recommended approval subject to design revisions related to architectural elevations, privacy, and landscape improvements. The applicant has implemented those design revisions, and staff recommends that the final revised design presented to the council is consistent with ADR group recommendations. So staff recommends that the key issues for the council to consider include the new front porch, which was specifically recommended by the ADR group as a feature that provides a superior design. In order to implement that feature, the front steps would encroach into the front yard setback by 2.5 feet, and staff believes that this is justified because it does result in the superior design. Another issue to consider are the rear deck railing design options. Staff recommends, again, that both design options do comply with design review. The options available to council are would be to include adopting both designs with the plans, which would allow the applicant to then choose one of the two designs for building permit, or the council may also approve the project with only one of the designs adopted if they so choose to do so. Another issue to look at is privacy for adjacent properties. There's currently no additional landscaping proposed at the side or rear. The condition of approval number 6, which is a standard condition of approval, would allow for additional landscaping screening to be implemented within 3 years if determined by staff, by council, with recommendation by staff and input by the neighbors. Another issue or item to consider is the bomb shelter structure. As a best practice measure, staff is recommending condition of approval number 11, which is a project-specific condition, to prepare a documentation report per National Park Service standards prior to further altering the structure. And staff recommends that that would be the only measure that would be needed in order to properly document this structure before taking the action to remove the entrance and seal it over. There have been no public comments received. The applicant's neighborhood outreach is included as attachment 4 to the staff report. So to summarize the applicant's project request, they're seeking a variance to construct a new entry porch with really just the front steps that encroach into the front yard setbacks by 2.5 feet, as previously described. They're seeking a nonconformity permit to increase the existing nonconforming building coverage slightly, which partially is a result of the new porch, and to increase the height of the structure with existing nonconforming setbacks. It would be noted that the side yard setbacks would not change. They would not be reduced. They would be maintained as they are. And lastly, the applicant is seeking design review to increase an existing roof height or building height. And the new roof height would comply with 30-foot maximum building height. In summary, staff recommends that the town council adopt resolution number 2180, conditionally approving a variance, nonconformity permit, and design review to elevate the existing 2-story single-family residence 5 feet above its existing elevation in its current location at 33 Bolinas Avenue. This does conclude my presentation. I'm available to answer questions of the town council, and I believe the architect, Andy Rogers, as well as property owner, Libby Tracy, are attending the meeting as well. Thank you.
Any council member have questions for staff? Okay. Andy or Libby, would you like to make a brief statement? Linda, I think, I'm not sure if they're in or not.
Elizabeth Breckus had her hand raised.
Oh, I'm sorry, I can't see her.
Can you shut down the share screen, Matthew?
Yes.
Great, thank you. Elizabeth Breckus.
Yeah, just a couple of points. Number one, I asked if the plan was to put the clear, or the desire was to put the clear screen, the clear decking in the back on the lower level as well. And maybe I misunderstood, but the architect seemed to say yes. So I just wanted to make that point. It sounded like it was both up and bottom. And then I just didn't understand the report that's being asked regarding the bomb shelter. Could you elaborate?
Sure. So just quickly regarding the rear elevation, I believe the architect may have been referring to glass doors on the first story. There are glass doors proposed, patio doors on the first story, but the plans do not contain a glass panel railing at the first story as proposed at the second story. So I would refer to the plans for the actual proposal. And with respect to the report, specifically the condition is recommending that a historic structures report be prepared. This is not to say that that the bomb shelter qualifies as a historic structure. It's really a format that is recommended by the National Park Service when one has an anachronistic structure that should be documented and more or less for posterity before any further changes are made. In some cases, a historic structures report is part of a much larger project to rehabilitate some type of historical resource. In this case, that's not the purpose. It's really just a best practice measure to make sure that the information that is contained within the structure and that can shed light on this particular era of history, the Cold War, and how people developed their properties and that impact can be better understood. And by having that report, that would be available to scholars and others interested in that subject matter. So it's really a best practice related to documenting information more so than the building itself or the project itself.
How much does that kind of report cost?
Roughly, I believe it can be done for under $2,000 if contracted with an architectural historian. One option that staff is considering is doing the report either partially or entirely in-house. I have personally some background in historic report preparation, and I may or may not be able to assist in that. But right now, that's not been a promise made, and so it's been conveyed to the applicant that if this condition is adopted, that they would probably wind up or could wind up contracting with an architectural historian to prepare this report, again, for probably under $2,000.
Okay, and then I just want to point, I had the same question you did, Matthew, about whether that was shown in the back, because it seemed like the number of stairs would require some steps. And so I was asking about that. And the architect I met with pointed me to A2.2. And you'll see there, it does show that railing in the bottom. And, I asked, why was it different in that one other exhibit that shows it without? And she said, well, we were just trying to show it from the top. So maybe the architect could explain, but as I understand it, it is proposing that, which isn't objectionable to me, but I just wanted to make that point.
Thank you. Yes, there is the glass railing in the side elevation view. There is a glass railing proposed, and in the rear elevation view, it's not visible. And I would note that it does not appear that an alternate of the side elevation was provided. Yes, there was. So the council does have the complete plans available
So A 2.2 and A 2.5 are the, would represent the side elevations that would show that railing also at the first level.
Thank you.
I don't believe this changes staff's recommendation.
Thank you. Elizabeth Robbins?
Just following up on Elizabeth's questions about the historic report, how important is that? I feel a little badly, asking the owners to spend $2,000 to just talk about bomb shelters. If it was because we needed to know the structure of what's under the house in the future for whoever might live there, kind of get that. But just to, talk about bomb shelters, I guess the question is, how important is that? And is it like excessive to require that?
Those are good questions. Staff certainly recognizes the potential cost. I would say that it is quite important to members of the community, particularly members of the land development community who are interested in historical development patterns. I could reference a Caltrans historical context document that researches and contains quite a bit of information about the trend and the significance and importance of the construction of Cold War era bomb shelters and fallout shelters, which are actually two different things. And so there is quite a bit of interest in this particular subject out there. And the reason staff has honed in on this particular condition with this particular property is that these structures are actually fairly rare. And so to have an opportunity to provide some documentation to the community that is interested in this type of structure, it's a fairly rare opportunity to be able to do this. So this is why staff is recommending it. Staff has discussed this with the applicant, and I won't speak for the applicant, but it's my understanding that they seem to understand the issue and to some extent are sympathetic to the issue. They, of course, would ask staff if possible, if staff can reduce the cost in any way by doing some of the work or in some other manner, which is something I would certainly be willing to do. But that can't be a promise at this point, I think.
Okay, thank you.
Do you know, Matthew, if there's any other project in town where there's been a similar historical structure where we've required a report like this?
I do not know. I'm not aware of one. And there may
I don't know whether a report was required, but there was a bomb shelter in Mrs. Buck's house, which is now the Pritzker property on Glenview. And I don't know, it's very possible that the Pritzkers destroyed the bomb shelter given the amount of change that they made to that property.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, I would simply note, just sort of on the thread of why, it's a good point that when these are encountered, they're very often demolished quickly and not used because they are anachronistic. There's very few opportunities to ever reutilize or reuse these structures. So it's sort of a one-shot deal when you do discover one and you have an opportunity to create some documentation before further changes are made. That's really your one shot to do that. So it's from that perspective that staff is making the recommendation. I would say it's not critical to the project itself. Certainly not.
Thank you. All right. Any other questions from council? All right, let's have Libby, Tracy, or Andy Rogers, if you wish to make a comment.
Oh.
Hi, Libby.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. And if you have questions about the house, Andy would be the one to answer those. I just want to say that, so our house flooded we've lived in that house. We've lived in that house on Bolinas for see, 23 years and lived on Shady Lane for a couple years before that. So we've raised all our kids in that house and love that house, but we did flood in the 2005-06 flood, where I had, 4 feet of water in my house. And we hired the rescue 911 that supposedly cleaned it all out. And then come to find out years later, I had started having health issues, and through a lot of digging and testing, I had mold contamination. And so then we had to get some people from Sacramento to test the house, and basically we have mold all over the house. So what started this whole remodel was that in April, we had hired the mold remediation company to come in and do some work. And we were hopefully only out of the house it was supposed to take a couple months. And then they found, they called it death by 1,000 paper cuts, molds basically in every room of the house. So we've been out of the house. I guess that was pre-COVID. So we've been out of the house since February, still haven't been back in the house. And so that led to this entire remodel, lifting of the house, which will be great and get rid of all of the mold. But that, I just wanted to say, we love living in Ross, raised all our kids there, and love the school, the whole thing. So we want to stay there and grow old there. But we can't live in a house of mold. So that's why we're doing this project. So thank you.
Thank you, Libby. Andy?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Matthew, and thank you, Town Council, for considering our project. And I just wanted to weigh in on 2 things. One, Elizabeth, I apologize that there might have been a little bit of misunderstanding about the rear guardrail situation, but Matthew was correct. The guardrails on the first floor would only show up in the side elevations, not in the rear elevations, because they're basically at the ends of where the stairs go from that first floor down to grade. And we would prefer that those guardrails be the same as what will end up being on the second level. And our preference, my preference aesthetically, and my client's preference would be to go for the glass option. That's what's there currently, and we believe that a nice visual connection, especially from the second floor sitting room toward the backyard, which is oriented south, would be really nice. And the traditional guardrail would kind of block that. And there's only really one place from which you could see both guardrails front and back at the same time, and that would be from the neighbor's roof, as best I can tell. The other thing I wanted to just add a little bit of information about is the bomb shelter itself. And Matthew and I had a few conversations about that and documenting what's there. I will say that the original plan was to fill in the bomb shelter. And when I went down there and took a look at it, and by the way, it's a little tricky because there's currently 4 feet of water down there. It was determined that structurally there's no need to fill it in. Rather, the only need for the current project to move forward would be to remove the concrete entry that's above grade. So what I talked to Libby about, and she seems fine with, is the idea of structurally filling in that opening so that the parking can occur, but the entire shelter that now exists could basically be left intact should anyone ever want to do anything with it in the future. And the other part about documenting what's there now is an agreement that we would pump out the water, the standing water that's down there, and kind of do further documentation, including any measurements or photographs, so that it's very clear about what does exist before it's covered over. So hopefully that helps a little bit.
Thank you.
Sure.
Any comments from the public?
I don't see anyone raised hand. Going once, going twice. Nope.
Thank you. All right, let's bring it back to the council for discussion. Elizabeth Breckus.
I think this looks like a really nice project, really nice. I think it's going to result in such a great usable home. You know, I guess the only thing I feel a little, and I'm fine with the glass paneling on the back, given the visibility and the fact that I get the view issue, and I feel like I want to give the owner's preference to what they want. But I guess the only issue is the bomb shelter, and I'm just feeling bad about it because on the one hand, I get Matthew's idea, and maybe if it was 500, I would just say, yes, that's not, you know, that's just kind of part of parcel of doing this stuff. But 2,000, you know, I feel a little bad about. So I don't know if others feel the same.
Elizabeth Robbins.
I'm not sure how, I mean, I have some reservations about having to do a report also. My other comment though was about the variance for the front porch. I mean, I think in general, you know, it's already non-conforming and we don't typically give variances to add a front porch. I think it's different when you're moving a house out of the floodplain. When you're raising a house up, it's a little, you know, you have a different way of getting out of the house and you kind of need a landing and you need steps. So I think that we can justify a variance in this situation, that we rarely use, you know, approve variances for enlarging houses because it's raising it out of the floodplain and it just changes the way you exit. So I'm fine with that, the variance.
Can I just make ask a clarifying question? The variance is only for 2 steps, right? That get you up to the front porch. It's not for the whole front porch. Is that right, Matthew? Okay.
I mean, but I guess if you didn't have the front porch, you wouldn't need, you know, the steps could start farther back. You know, you could probably do it without a variance, but I'm saying, I think it's fine because it is only 2 steps and it raising the house up, you need something different. You need kind of a landing and then steps to go out or it would look awkward. I guess I'd be curious what other people think about the report. I agree with Elizabeth. The cost it's pricey. $500 is something you could kind of swallow, but $2,000 is a lot of money.
Eat your bill.
I'm reluctant to require the report for a family that's already suffered through the 2005 flood plus mold. And then, I mean, if the family wants to do it, that would be great, but I'm reluctant to require it at the possible $2,000 cost. So yeah, I join in on that concern.
Beach.
With respect to the railing in the back, I want to remind the council that at least Elizabeth Breckus and I think Elizabeth Robbins were on the council when we approved that design feature in connection with some prior changes to this house in about 2015 or 2016.
I'm also kind of opposed to making the applicant do the report because I'm not even sure how the report would get used. I mean, would it be in the Moya library or I don't really quite understand that. And also I'm fine with doing the clear glass railings because there's no way to see all the railings at once, as Andy points out, unless you're on the neighbor's roof. So I would let the applicant decide whatever railings they want in the back.
Yeah, I didn't mention, I'm fine with that also. And it is existing, you know, and as Beach pointed out, we approved what's existing. I think it doesn't make any sense to change it unless the applicant wanted to. So I'm fine with whatever they want for their back railing.
Okay. So it sounds like there's consensus about the railings as well as about allowing the applicant to do a report on the bomb shelter if the applicant wants to. So maybe we could have a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Great. Linda?
Yes, let's take the vote. Councilmember Breckus.
Aye.
And Councilmember Kircher.
Aye.
Councilmember Cool.
Aye.
Councilmember Robbins.
Aye.
Mayor McMillan,
Aye.
and the motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. Congratulations.
Thank you.
all.
Thank you. We appreciate it.
Really appreciate it.
Great. Stay
And
safe.
we'll look forward to seeing you back in town, Libby.
I know. I can't wait to get back, Beach. It's been a long time. Been a while.
Excuse me, Mayor, it looks like someone's raised their hand. Do we open it up for public comment?
We did.
Okay, then it's too late.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry. Next is no action items. Council correspondence. I received a letter today from Kay Lee, who lives on Ivy, which is a private road, requesting an examination of impact fees, road impact fees, and whether they can be used for private roads. And also requesting potentially street cleaning be done on private roads. So I just wanted you to be aware of that. Anybody else? Future council items, anything? Okay, now I'm gonna ask if anyone in the public has any comment for the matter that we will be discussing in closed session. Linda?
I don't see any raised hands for that item.
Okay, great. So now what we're going to do is we're all going to leave this meeting and we're going to go back to our emails and look for your closed session email. Click on that link and then you will rejoin us in closed session. So I will see you all very shortly.
I will be pausing the recording here shortly.
Well, is there a break at all?
Oh, well, that's a reasonable request. Yes. That'll give people time to go into closed session. So let's start the discussion in closed session at 8:30. So that gives you 8 minutes.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Okay.
All right.
All right. We are back from our closed session and we have no reportable items. So with that, I would like to adjourn the meeting at 9:12.
All right.
Thank you, everyone. Stay safe.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
You.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.